going on, everybody? You're listening to the SANE Show, the show about nothing and everything. I'm your host, Cliff, and today I have with us, he's worked with Rockefeller Records, Universal Music, Motown Records, among other notable record labels. He is the founder and CEO of the brand architects, Antone Barnes. How you doing, Antone?
I'm fine, and yourself? How are you doing today, Clifford?
I'm good, man. I'm really good. I'm super excited to have you on the show. Again, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come on the SANE Show. I'm really excited to have the conversation with you.
Not a problem. Not a problem at all.
Really quick, before we jump right into it and introduce the topics, I want to do like I always do, shout out all the social media listeners, the followers, and everyone all around the world in all 60 plus countries taking and supporting the SANE Show podcast. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. Continue liking, sharing, and subscribing. And if you're listening and you don't follow us already, be sure to check us out at the SANE_show on Instagram and Twitter. That's SANE, SANE_show on Instagram and Twitter. And then you can find us on Facebook at The SANE Show. Again, on Facebook, The SANE Show. So today, I want to talk to you about changing course, going from one passion to another, especially you having transitioned in your career and done a few different things. And then I also want to talk to you about transferable skills. Again, having done different things and developing different skills throughout your career and being able to apply those things to different parts of your career as well. Following that, we're going to have an interview where I'll ask you some questions so that the listeners can get the more insight into you, your journey, and also, again, just learn from that as well. Let's hop right into it with changing course, one passion to another. And, I'll be honest, when I was putting this together, I really didn't think much of it. But then as I looked into your journey and I realized, you were really into music, and I'm sure you still got the love for music, but then you transitioned into other things as well. And, one of the things I was thinking about, because again, me being young and aspiring to want to do so many different things in this industry, I sat back and I said, wow, just because you start with one passion doesn't mean that you have to do that forever.
Not at
It's
all.
okay to pursue different things. So if you could, I want you to speak on that to give the listeners a little bit of insight as to, going from one passion to another and that it being something totally acceptable.
Well, no, to tell you the truth, one thing you'll find out about me and is that I'm very frank and I'm very transparent.
Hmm.
And some of the things that I may say may come to some people's shock. But at the end of the day, I believe in, how can I say, giving in detail what certain industries, my experiences in certain industries were. And I've made decisions that I've made in my career and why I did those. So like you had mentioned, I started in the music industry, and I'll be frank with you, I had no intentions of being in the music industry. I was going to sell cars. I mean, I'm a car lover. I love cars. Growing up, my father was a minority owner, the very few minority owners of a Porsche dealership in the United States. So seeing a African American male in that type of position and having those type of how can I say, running a business like that, seeing the good and the bad, it inspired me in college. But I guess you could say sometimes things just fall into your lap. Destiny happens. While I was in college, me and a group of my friends, to help pay for college tuition in grad school, to be frank with you, we threw parties. They started out as house parties, and then they just all of a sudden exploded into concerts where we were actually making pretty good money. I mean, we were the first ones to bring Jay-Z to the DC area, Biggie, Wu-Tang Clan, Funkmaster Flex, Faith Evans. I mean, you name it. So one night, this may have been maybe 1995, we were doing Faith Evans album release party. And I still remember getting a call from Dame Dash. This dude named Dame Dash, fast talking to him. I'm like, who is this guy? Like, who? Dame Dash, this Dame Dash. I'm like, who is this? So he's like, hey, man, this is Dame Dash. I got an artist named Jay-Z. I'm like, who? Jay-Z? Like, I didn't even know who Jay-Z was. So long story
Wow.
short, yeah, he was like, hey, we'd love to have him open up for your Faith Evans album release party in Baltimore. So I was like, all right, cool. We ain't got to pay for him, right? No, we'll come in, open up. Long story short, we had a crowd of about 4,000 people. he destroyed it. And upon at the end of the concert, they asked me to basically come work for them at Rockefeller Records. And at the time, I wasn't, like I said, at the time, I wasn't really into the music industry. I didn't really know much about, I mean, my father had contacts in it, but it wasn't really something I wanted to pursue. So we had a further conversation, and they were like, hey, listen, you come work for us. I wasn't moving back to New York. I'm like, listen, I want to stay in the Maryland area and finish my school. We got a position. You could be our Mid-Atlantic rep. We'll pay you this, and we'll help support your education. And I was like, okay, bet. And I kind of fell into the music industry. So I was at
Mm-hmm.
Rockefeller from 95 to 97. Then I went to Loud Records, where we helped develop the careers of Big Pun, Mobb Deep, Wu-Tang Clan, you name it. I was the regional and Northeast director there from 97 to 2000. Then I went to Motown from 2000 to 2002, then Universal Motown. So long story
Mm-hmm.
short, I had a very exciting career. I say it. I believe I was in the music industry during the golden era, at the time where it was fun. There was a lot of great music coming out. Our approach to positioning the music was great. But I'm a person that I see the future. And when I saw Napster come out and I saw what we were doing with Napster, I kind of knew the end of the music industry was coming. I was like, okay, you know what? The way they're going about
Mm.
this is not the right way. We're fighting it instead of trying to join it. I kind of was like, okay, I don't see record labels being the way that they are now 10 years from now. And they weren't. As you see, all these labels started, subsidiary labels started falling off, and then the big majors just started coming in. And I'll be honest with you, I started seeing people's true colors. Like, I'm the type of individual where the music industry is very shady. I'm gonna tell you straight up. It's a very shady industry.
Mm-hmm.
You can't trust a lot of people. And also, I saw the treatment that we were giving the artists, and I really didn't like it. But then I'll be perfectly frank, I didn't like where we were going with the music. There was one point in time where I was making good money and doing everything, but I wasn't motivated. I didn't like the music we were pushing. I didn't like the people I worked with. I'll be perfectly frank with you. With me, I like to do something that represents something. And we weren't representing our community the right way. It was just about money. And at the time, this may have been 2000, this maybe 2008, 2009, I started thinking about it. But in the time while I was doing that, we were the largest record label in the country. So I would meet all these athletes. And of course, all the athletes wanted to meet and hang out with the artists in the clubs and at the parties. So I would have conversations with them, and they were very interesting. And I would talk to them about, okay, so what are you guys doing? Like, okay, besides sports, what do you do? And these young men basically had no answers, nothing. Oh, I just play football. And I mean, these are first round draft pick guys winning Super Bowls, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
interesting. I was like, wow. So I was like, so what do you plan on doing when you're done playing football? And they couldn't answer that. So it started planting the seed in my head, like, I really think I could help these young men out. And one in particular, he was a all pro tight end. I won't say his name. He was really my first client. He pursued me to work for him for like 2, 3 years. And I would just consistently turn him down. But then one morning I just decided I didn't want to work in the music industry. I just I couldn't come to myself promoting music that I personally didn't like and working with people I didn't like. I'll be perfectly honest with you. So that's when I started the brand architects. I called this particular tight end up and said, "Hey, listen, let's have a conversation." And he was very excited. And we talked on the phone for like 4 hours about non-football related stuff, nothing to deal with football. I'm like, I don't want to talk about football. You have that. You're at the top of your game. Let's talk about what you want to do with football and your brand. During my days working with the likes of Jay-Z, Nelly, Cash Money, and all of that, we were able to diversify these artists' brands so they could get income and stand for something more than just artists. So that's when I kind of came up with the plan that we need to do this in regards to athletes, especially our minority athletes, because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times they are just labels as athletes, and when their playing days are over, they're done. A lot of people see a lot of these athletes being broke, some of them committing suicide. I mean, some of them are very sad story, very sad endings. And I blame the industry and I blame the people around them, their agents, their financial advisors, even some of their friends. That, I blame them because I started doing research and they didn't prepare these young men for life after football. Similar to a lot of the artists, like you call them one hit wonders. A lot of these artists, one week they're hot, the next week you're reading about them in the tabloids. Very similar. They were very similar, I guess you could say, outcomes. So at that point, I decided to start the brand Architects and really leave the music industry behind and really make my mark and take my experience in the music industry to the sporting arena. Because first off, there was a need, and then secondly, I saw the ending of the music industry, and it was a good career shift for me as well too.
So, question to you, because one of the things my mentor had always said to me is like, no matter what you want to do in the business, there's so many different paths in which you can go to get to wherever it is you want to end up.
Yes.
And I think for a lot of people starting out in the business, there's a lot of ambiguity, and
Hmm.
sometimes people have they're like, oh man, I want to do this, but I don't know where to even begin. What advice would you give to people who are starting out, someone fresh out of school, looking to
Hmm.
maybe get an internship at an agency or wherever in the industry and trying to
Wow.
find their way? What would you say to them?
Is this in the music industry or the sporting industry?
Just in general,
Just
I
the
guess
general
entertainment,
entertainment industry?
entertainment. Yeah.
You know what? It's very, the entertainment industry is very, it morphosizes all the time. It's adaptable. You have to be, especially with technology nowadays. Like a lot of people want to get internships at the big agencies like CAA and all of these other entities. I don't advise them to do that. I advise them to get an internship with a smaller agency, because you'll get more hands-on knowledge on how to deal with artists, athletes, actors, whatever you call them, because you'll get more hands-on, I say, experience with it. If you join one of these big agencies, you're not, first you're going to have to fight through all of the political aspects of it. People don't, they quick to forget the politics of this game.
Hmm.
Okay. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of people who have great talents, but they don't know the politics of it. And it's a shame, because you shouldn't have to kiss somebody's ass to advance in a career. If you have a talent and a gift, you shouldn't have to, how can I say, ride somebody's coattail to advance your careers. But unfortunately, a lot of the times that's the case. But if you're in a smaller agency that you could kind of really get that hands-on experience, because I tell people, I've worked at these major corporations, I've worked at these big conglomerates, and it gets you get so caught up in the politics that you can't even, sometimes you may not even enjoy the experience. It may totally change your perspective of the industry. And that's the
Hmm.
sad part, because there's a lot of good in the industry. Don't get it twisted. That's your passion. But when you get caught up with the politics of it, it'll burn you out before you even get a chance to get going. So, and especially when you start getting in the big corporate, these big agencies, you may be the most talented, gifted person in there, but you're not in the right political circle, you won't advance.
Right.
And I really encourage, especially our minorities, our minority brothers and sisters, to definitely do that, because we see what's going on in our country right now. We know what exists. Let's just be perfectly frank here. So it's like, okay, find a clique that you could grow. Search a company that's going to let you grow and let you be involved. Don't be in a company where they're just having you send facts and send emails and answering phone calls, because you're not learning the industry that way. You're basically just a handyman or a handy woman.
All right, we're back. So I want to talk to you now about transferable skills. Speaking from experience myself, I started in radio, got on as an intern with a tour promoter, now my mentor, and I've done some work booking agents, and I mean, not booking as a booking agent, booking shows for music artists, upcoming music artists,
Mm-hmm.
and I've taken a lot of that to help prepare me as a podcaster And so again, you know all about that, having gone from one industry to another, but really being able, because you touched on that in the last segment about how you were able, you were talking to these athletes and talking to them about their game plan, helping them, taking what you already have to be able to
Hmm.
help them and advance their career on and off the field. So if you
Correct.
could give me a little bit of insight as to how you were able to do that, and also some of your tips on being able to go from one thing to another and still be able to add value.
For sure. I mean, I tell anyone you have to be adaptable. Okay. You have to be able to adjust certain careers, technology, environment, trends. They all change certain industries. So it's just to kind of go back to when we were in the music industry where I was telling my superiors, the upper management, like, hey, listen, we need to create our own type of streaming network instead of fighting Napster. And we called it, they had the dinosaur mentality. No, we've been doing this for years and we're not. And then look where they ended up. So you always have to be mindful on what's going on, anything that's associated with your industry, but also other industries. You have to be with technology, and especially with brand recognition now in regards to branding. You have to be adverse. You have to be able, I call it multifaceted branding in regards to what you represent, what your client represents, what it stands for. Because if you don't, you pigeonhole yourself.
True.
And you have to, just like, okay, you could be an expert in this one field. And listen, we all know what they say. A smart person knows they don't know everything, but at least they're aware of everything. There's a difference. So you have to be aware of the ever changing atmosphere and the ever changing when it comes to, technology and, like I said, cultural trends and all everything. You have to be mindful of this. You can't just be caught up single mindedly just in what your daily operations are, because that at any time that can end and change, and you're gonna have to make a shift. And if you're not able to adapt to the shift, you're setting yourself up for failure. So the most important thing I tell everybody: be adaptable, be aware
Hmm.
of everything that's in your surroundings, not just associated in your industry, but also your other industries.
Right. It's very true. What would you say are some of the most valuable skills in which you took from the like those key skills that you took
Hmm.
from the music industry and that took you all the way?
One thing, I listen. I mean, I'm quick to make a shift. I don't. How can I say? You can't hold on to things. You can't hold. You got to be able to.
Mm,
You can't hold on to things. You know what I mean? I tell people that all the time. You got to be able to let things go and be like, okay, did that, done that, been there. That's old. Okay, where? How can I use what I learned from that to get me there? See what I'm saying?
mm, yeah.
That's key. See, a lot of people want to hold on to what they did and, oh, I've been there and I did this. Okay, cool. That was yesterday. What are you working on today to get you to tomorrow?
Hmm.
And you have to be, people have to have that mindset, because what if you don't have that mindset, then, like I said, you'll be stuck in the past and you won't be able to adapt. Like I said, you have to have that
Mm,
adaptability, okay, in regards to the ever shifting atmosphere, in regards to, industries that you may be involved with, or, like I said, that you may be forced to make a change in your life. You may be fired. A lot of times people don't see them true selves. Some people are always saying, "Oh, I want to do this, I want to do that," but then they don't do it until they're forced to do it. And then
mm,
you know what I mean? And it's like, okay, why do you have to be in a situation where you say you get fired? Okay, then you have no choice but to adapt and find a new job, or find a new career, or find yourself. I mean, with the COVID-19 prime example, I think a lot of people are using this opportunity to find themselves. Some
yep.
people aren't. Some people aren't. Some people are wasting this time. But I tell people, listen, use this time to diversify yourself in regards to, okay, how is this job that I'm doing right now relevant? How long will it last? And how something like COVID-19 drastically affected it. Because there's a lot of people out there saying, I've always wanted to do this. Well, why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you doing it? It's like people sometimes they need someone else to validate what they want to do. No, don't sit around waiting for somebody else's validation. Just do it. Just do it. Seriously,
That's true.
you
Um,
know.
Go ahead.
No, because it's like that's the problem with a lot of people. They're so worried about other people's praises or listen, the world is full of bandwagon hoppers. A lot of people tell you you can't do it, you shouldn't do it because they can't do it. No, just do it. Because believe me, once you do it, then they're gonna jump on board.
That's true. That's very true. You said a lot when you talk about this pandemic, because I can even speak to that as far as the plans that I've had for this show and everything like just got wrecked.
Yeah.
And having to make the adjustment, it forced me to look again and say, well, there's got to be some kind of opportunity there. Let me go back to the drawing board. And honestly, I hate that it played out this way and that we have to deal with a pandemic, but there's a blessing. There was a blessing in disguise at the same time because I'm in a better place than I wanted to be. So,
Yeah. Yeah, you
it's
go.
like, yeah, it's like you said, you learn to adapt and just, take it, like, as I like to say, roll with the punches. So,
That's what you have to do. That's listen, life. That's what life. That's life.
yeah,
I tell a lot of these young men. I'm 48. I got 20 years on you. Life is gonna throw some curveballs your way. They are. And I tell people, when I was younger, I used to overreact and panic and stress. Now, I've gotten older and realized that's part of life. I sleep like a baby because I'm like, listen, okay, it happened. Okay, what do we got to do? Like
right,
with our clients, COVID, we represent a number of NFL players, a number of them. Okay, there was a lot of off-season things we had planned for them. COVID came, changed everything. But guess what? They're just as busy now because COVID happened, George Floyd happened. So a lot they're even more active now. Okay, they may not be in studio or in person, but everything, thank God we have the technology to adapt. So we
yeah,
just shifted their focus. You have to be able to shift. And if you're not an individual that's diverse, you better find yourself right now
yeah,
because I think right now it's showing people's shortcomings and why they need to be able to adapt. Because if like with a number of our clients, I'm like, okay, a lot of NFL players now, I think they're getting reality checks. NFL, NBA, all of them, because like, okay, without this sport, what are you gonna do?
right,
What can you do? And they're sitting around twiddling their thumbs. They can't do anything. Same's gonna happen with artists. Artists can't go
mm-hmm,
tour. You can't do no concerts or parties right now. Y'all can't do nothing.
mm-hmm,
So a lot of them are feeling the pressure right now. Like, okay, what do you represent at the end of the day? That's what matters. You have to represent more than what you're labeled as, and that's being a athlete. That's being a business person. Everybody, I think everybody's going through that.
Okay, now for the interview, I'm going to ask you some questions so that the listeners can learn more about you,
Okay.
about your background, and all the fun things that go along with that. So, my first question to you, you have been in the music industry, you've dabbled in the design industry, and now you find yourself as a brand manager. What did you see in the musicians and athletes' brand management that you felt was lacking?
There was no lifestyle branding. There was no. I saw that they were dependent. Their brand was dependent on serving the record label or serving the sports entity. Like it was all about okay, how many records can we sell, and let's just say hypothetically in the music industry, once your records are stopped selling, once the radio stops playing your music, now what? And a lot of artists were able to adapt. I mean, you had Jay-Z with Rockaware, you had 50 Cent with his clothing line. You started seeing some of them in the early 2000s use their platforms to create other opportunities. Rockefeller we had I mean, we had so much stuff I can't even remember. I mean, we had Outlaw with Dame Dash. We had all types of entities that they used the Rockefeller brand for and created opportunities. And it I think they were one of the first, then you had Def Jam doing it with Fat Farm and,
Hmm.
then 50 Cents and then Puffy
Yep.
with
Sean
the
John.
Sean John. There you go. So, I mean, it was a culture. We influenced the culture with our music. So with that being said, corporate America saw the value in that. So they were like, oh, we could use these guys as the face of this and use their name because guess what? They have influence. They have all of these millions of followers and people that have purchasing power, okay, buying their records. They can also, we could use that to purchase clothes or Ciroc and all these other entities. So it started in the music industry, and a lot of the athletes would sit back and admire that. And I'm like, don't sit back and admire it, do it yourself. Because they would, unfortunately, a lot of our young athletes, they don't get that positive reinforcement to be more than just athletes. Like when I deal with our athletes, I don't care about football. I don't even go to the games. We represent over 20 guys. I don't need to worry. I'm not going to a game. I'm worried about you as a man because guess what? I'm going to use the NFL to create opportunities for what you like to do. I tell them you're in a unique position that the typical 21 to 30-year-old, especially African American male, isn't. You're in you're in the NFL. So people are going to be curious on what you're doing, what your other interests are. I don't care if it's painting. That's kind of where we did the design thing. That was with Vernon Davis. Vernon Davis he was a painter. He liked to paint. He liked to do interior design. He liked other things. He wanted to be known as just an outstanding football player. So with that being said, we were like, okay, well, we need to tell that story to the world. A lot of the problems that a lot of these athletes, their agents, and I put a lot of blame on these agents. A lot of these agents they're worthless because they only pigeonhole them to just be athletes because guess what? That's the only thing that matters to them. They don't care about these kids when their careers are over. So that's where I saw the disconnect because it was similar to a lot of artists. Like I said, one-hit wonders, a lot of artists that were hot one year and then go on the next. The same with a lot of athletes. I call it individual branding. Individual branding, using your current platform to build your individual brand.
Good eye. So,
Seriously.
given your company's charity management, how do you see brand management addressing the heightened role of activism in the public persona of major athletes and entertainers?
I mean, they have to accept the responsibility that they're influencers. Don't get in this industry if you're not going to come into. I'm tired of seeing a lot of athletes and artists influencing our youth to do bad things. I'll be honest with you. Too many, and I challenge the music industry too to step their game up because they really influence the culture, whether it's good or bad. And we need to make them responsible for the messages that they give, just how we hold athletes responsible for their actions. So they have to accept the fact that they have a fan base. They have people that are looking up to them, regardless of whether they want it or not. It's a responsibility. Okay,
Hmm.
that's one of the perks that comes with being in a blessed situation. You're blessed. You don't have a typical 9 to 5 like people have. So okay, that's a minor sacrifice is to basically use your resources to help build a legacy. I call it legacy building. That's how people are gonna remember you when you're long gone.
Right.
And it also sets you up for life after football. Philanthropy and community activism it says a lot in regards to who you are, and especially with our current environment. Okay, it's like what do you represent outside of the playing field? Okay, what do you represent when you're not in the in the studio? They're very similar entities. I tell them you guys are the actors, entertainers. Period. You guys are influencers. Okay, what are you doing? Don't let everything just be for the dollar because at the end of the day, trust me, the dollars will actually last longer if you represent something well and represent something good, especially in our current environment in our country.
I agree with that. I certainly do. And so, with this next question, you, again, having done all the things that you've done and you developed an eye, I mean, you're just like an agent, like a scout, and like a recruiter. But what are
Mm-hmm.
your considerations when taking on a new client regarding their past and future online behavior, especially in the environment that we live in? And we all like to talk about cancel culture. So,
Yes.
what are your
Yes.
considerations?
Well, before we even take on a client, I do our, me and my team does due diligence. We do some research on the kid. There's clients that we haven't taken on. There's clients that I fired because they didn't listen. We can't make you do something unless you want to do it. Okay. I tell the kids like I can't hold your hand. I could guide you, but I can't hold your hand 24/7. It's either you want to do this, you want to be more than just an athlete. That's our motto. Like I tell everybody, if you want to look up to anybody, look up to LeBron James. Look up to LeBron. LeBron is more than just a basketball player. And guess how he's helped his team his boys around him, they're not just leeches. They're not just his boys laying around smoking weed and just taking advantage of him. No, they are his business entities now. And a lot of white corporate America doesn't like that. I'll be honest with you, that's a threat. So I'm like, he's changing people's perception of he's not just an athlete, he's a corporation. And I tell everyone, if you want to, you may not be on that level, but have that mindset. See what I'm saying? On regards to how do you want to use, I tell the guys, listen, you can catch a football. I can't teach you how to run a route. I can't teach you how to sack a quarterback. You got that. That's easy. You do that in your sleep. Okay, 6 months out of the year, okay, you focus on that. But the other 6 months of the year, we need to focus on, okay, what's going to happen when you get that final check from the NFL? Or if that you get one hit. All it takes is one practice and your career is over.
Yeah.
It's over like that. And a lot of them don't have people in their corners telling them that. One thing that I cherish on is that I'm gonna always tell you what you want to hear. I'm always tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. If you can't accept that, we can't work together. Because guess what? You're not going to listen, and I'm not going to waste my time. I don't care who you are.
Respect. As I'm talking to you, you're familiar with the show Ballers with Dwayne Johnson. That was
Everybody said, my friend is on there, and he was like, yo, yeah, you were the real. It's funny to say that because my friend is the brother on there. He's like, and I know him. He's like, you the real life Dwayne. I was like, yeah, I wish I got Dwayne Check's bank account, Dwayne Johnson's bank account. But yeah, he's like, yo, you the real one. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, but there's things that he did stupid on that show. I'm like, yo, he's messing up. So believe me, I've seen a couple of mistakes that he even made on that show.
Right.
And even my friend is like, yeah, and you wouldn't have done that. I'm like, yeah, I damn sure wouldn't have.
So my last question, what are your main concerns for continuing to build brand awareness and maintaining stability for your clients and yourself in the midst of this COVID pandemic as it continues to disrupt professional sports?
You know what, though? I'm not really worried about it because a lot of our clients, we tend to, and I encourage forward-thinking guys. Like, we're working on their other business entities. We're working on their charities. We're working on other things that are non-football related, to be perfectly frank with you. Like, a lot of the guys are refocused. And between the George Floyd situation and COVID, a lot of guys have been motivated. And this is just not my clients. I've spoken to, I have friends and organizations and the particular minorities, and they're like, there's extra energy. We're in a situation right now that we've never seen in our country. And it's up to us to take advantage of this opportunity because we all know this is America. We don't know how long they're going to be on this. Okay, let's help and let's really advance, entity, because there's a lot of people out there with lip service, but then there's actually some people out there that's actually trying to do something. So as of current right now, a lot of our guys are very, very motivated in being more than just athletes because they see how quickly it could be taken away, but then also they're getting a reality check like, okay, you know what? Yes, we have to do something. We have to do something. And guys are holding people accountable. They're holding the NFL accountable. They're holding each other players accountable. They're holding leaders accountable. They're holding everyone accountable. So it's like while we have this momentum, we're utilizing it and we're trying to get as much accomplished as we can.
That's good stuff. I like that answer. I like that answer. And I honestly, after having this conversation with you, that's what I would expect to hear from you, when I ask you that question.
For sure.
Really quick before I let you go, if you could, let the listeners know where they can find you so that they can stay on top of Brand Architects, your clients, and see all the cool things that you guys are doing.
You can check my IG page, which is the Brand Arc, which is TheBrandArch, and then our website, which is thebrandarchitects.biz.
Cool deal. You guys heard him. Go be sure to check him out. Check out his clients. He's doing some really dope stuff. Like I said, I've before the show and looking at everything you're doing, I thought it was pretty cool. So I enjoyed the conversation. I appreciate you again taking time out of your schedule to come on the SANE Show. Definitely have to have you back on in the future, especially when things pick up for everybody.
Yeah, when we get back to some type of normal, but it's going to be a new normal. I tell you, better get used to it.
That's true. That's very true. With that being said, this is the SANE Show, the show about nothing and everything. And until next time, we're out.